Hello and welcome to another edition of Discover Trempealeau County, where we travel the highways and the byways of Trempealeau County and explore all the interesting people, things, locations that make Trempealeau County such a wonderful place to live, work, and play. And today we're in the very north of Trempealeau County at the Strum Community Trails. So we are just east, I think, east of Strum on Highway 10. Gosh, what, maybe a quarter mile from the city here. And we're exploring, like I said, the Strum Community Trails, which is an exciting new endeavor by a great coalition of different folks, bringing walking trails, hiking trails, cross-country skiing trails, all sorts of outdoor recreation opportunities. And we're joined by a couple of the folks that are making this incredible project happen. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
So I'm Josh Stendahl, a resident here in Strum.
And I'm Nikki Rindal. I'm also a resident here in Strum.
Very good. And Josh and Nikki, why don't we start off by talking a little bit about where we're at, what the history of this spot is here, and how you guys kind of got involved in wanting to make it more accessible for folks, make it more of an asset for specifically Strum, but more so, all of northern Trempealeau County. So, this has been a place people have used for outdoor recreation for really a century, right? And it's gone through different phases.
Sure, yeah. So this area really has been a part of the history of Strum for a long time. The area where we stand today was actually a downhill ski area back early in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, maybe even before. A lot of Norwegian ancestry here, yeah. So ski hills were a big deal. And this area was highly used as that. There's remnants in the woods today of rope tows and different things that help get to the top, and you can really see that as you walk through and poke around. Now when the vegetation's all overgrown, but in the spring and in the fall season you can certainly see some of that. Over the years it was given to the village to be used as recreational space. Probably 20-30 years ago there was some snowmobile races and motocross and different things. It's had a lot of use over the years, and really this was an endeavor to try and bring some of that back, to bring some of that recreational purpose back to the community, and try and give the community an area to go for a walk or take your snowshoes out, take your bike out, do different things and get outside. Obviously with everything that's gone on in the last year and a half, trying to give people a resource to get outside has been really important. So,
yeah. And then Nikki, so how did you get involved? Josh, how did you get involved as well?
So I guess I got involved. I'm part of the village board and looking for a resource to do something over here. I think there's really an opportunity to tie this back into the village. Our lake is really close by proximity wise. To build these trails back into the village, to get them over to our VFW park, I think really, there's no agreement, there's been not a lot of discussion on it, but trying to build this back into the community and give the community a way to get out here by foot, by bike, is important. And really trying to build, Strum in a lot of ways is a sleeper community, so you're trying to attract people, you're trying to build things that are going to bring people back into the community and give people a purpose for wanting to be here. Helping to give resources for kids to come out and get out and about and ride their bikes. When we were kids, even 30 years ago, we could ride our bikes pretty much anywhere. We used to utilize the Buffalo River State Trail and everything else and get back into the nooks and crannies and fish. This is just hopefully something to more purposeful for the community and more purposeful to keep the kids and create some attraction and give people that move to Strum and raise families here say, hey, let's go do this on a Saturday afternoon or an evening, or Nikki comes over here and does her morning runs. She just got new trail shoes, so stuff like that. So but that's big for the community.
Yep.
We don't have a lot of industry here in Strum. It's giving people recreational purpose and giving some of that to attract people here in the community.
And I'm a member of the Rod and Gun here in Strum. Our clubhouse is right behind us, and you know, I'd come out here to explore, you know, because this path was pretty much open as a sledding hill even in the winter. So we'd come up here and walk around, but it kind of stopped, like it was all overgrown up on top. So, you know, I brought it up at a rod and gun meeting. I'm like, the village owns this. Can we go and talk to the village and see if we can get them opened up again? And got in touch with Josh, and he's like, absolutely, let's get on it. So that's how that all started. And it was just a lot of laborious work to clear trees and grass and stuff to get it back open.
So to give folks a little bit of an idea of how much space we're talking here, you mentioned a little earlier, we were talking before we started taping, about 110 acres of land here?
I think it's about 110, 115, somewhere in there. This side to my left, we're standing kind of on the entrance. There's certainly 80 acres, and then there's 30 or 40 over here to the right. So a little bit to the east and a little bit to the west. So it used to be a farmstead. Years ago, a group of individuals owned this property, the golf course, and where our current Little League field, softball field, sits today. And all of that was kind of given to the village. They had some foresight that this would be good for recreational use and everything else. So.
Well, I think you hit it on the head earlier. When folks are looking for a community to move into, or a place to start a family, or maybe even, you know, start or grow a business, having outdoor recreation opportunities is always listed right up there at the top. I think COVID especially, man, it really reminded us how important it is to have places to still get outdoors. And I think more than ever, people have, you know, not as many people are on the farm, right? Not as many people have grandma and grandpa's farm they can go to, where they can be out in the country and hike around on 40 acres or something like that. So, boy, it sure seems like what you're trying to do out here is just spot on for what the community needs. And you mentioned it takes a ton of volunteers, a lot of different groups coming together. How has that been, you know, organizing volunteers, organizing groups of people to do the work? And, you know, it's not just like you do the work once and you set it and forget it. I mean, there's constant maintenance that has to be done. It must be a real challenge sometimes, and also probably really gratifying to see the fruits of your labor come together, getting those people together.
So you've got some really great people like Nikki. Spends an awful lot of time, and an inordinate amount of time out here, really maintaining, and the Rod and Gun Club has really stepped up to the plate. You've got a number of individuals that I don't know how many hours are into it, but it's a lot. Clearing trees, clearing trails, running out here with tractors, trying to get stuff cleaned up, you know, marking trails. You know, really a lot of that credit goes to Nikki and the Rod and Gun Club. Sure, and absolutely, I don't want to leave anybody out. There's been a lot of other people that have come over. There was a volunteer day where we had 3-4 people. We actually had some people come down from Eau Claire that were part of Corba, the bicycle group up there.
Okay.
Came down and take a look at things, and I think there's a lot of opportunity on that front as things get further integrated and developed. But really, the volunteer effort has been phenomenal to try and just build what's here, which is over 2 miles of trail, well maintained, easy to walk on. And then you've also got, you know, volunteered equipment and things of that things. You know, the village has helped out by helping out with tractors and things like that. Had some individuals come in and maintain and better groom the bottom. But yeah, volunteer is really how this is getting built and how it will get built in the future.
Yeah.
And that's a big, because there are, when you start looking at doing those other things, blacktopping trails, tying in trails, that's where the monetary funds. So if you can really build this to what it becomes a destination, all of that will start falling in line as well.
I think you know the head. If you build it, they will come, and it seems like, especially when you're, you know, applying for grants and that sort of thing, if you can show a progress on a project, that's one of the things they really love to see. But well, you talk about the future too. You know, you've already done an incredible amount of work, and how much time really? I think you mentioned maybe about the last 12 months is where the bulk of trying to get this going has been. I mean, do you have a long-term vision per se, or is it more like let's just do what we can and the vision will come as we continue to do it? I mean, what do you see eventually, or what are you hoping eventually all gets developed out here?
So I guess what we're looking to do is create more trails. Like right now there's a lot of vertical trails. And we're hoping to build more like we call them single track trails, where mountain bike people appreciate single track trails. They're pretty narrow dirt trails, and they just go winding around in the hills, and they're beautiful for walking on too, for hiking and stuff. But we're hoping to build more trails just throughout the area, 110 acres or whatever, and just bring more options in, whether it's mountain bikes, hiking, snowshoeing, any of that.
Yeah.
And like Josh said, building it in so it goes in with the ATV trails or over to the campground, because we've got a campground in town that gets quite a bit of use as well. So it's just another option for them.
Yeah, Strum and the Strum area really does have a lot of really great outdoor recreation opportunities, like you said, with the golf course and the campground, and what you guys are doing here really seems like it all folds in really nicely with each other. So,
and this is something, it takes a lot of discussion before it would all get worked out, but there's a lot of opportunity here. So, this adjoins to the campground and our Little League field and our VFW park, which also ties into our lake. Buffalo River is a trout stream from here to the east. It gets a lot of use, which ties back into the Buffalo River State Trail. So the more that we can integrate this, and the more that you can integrate it with our campground, our successes that we have, our campground, our lake has been a phenomenal fishery the last few years. Who's to say that this trail couldn't be built in to go alongside the lake, where if somebody wanted to come out in the morning, they could walk from VFW Park and do the whole route. There's certainly a lot of vision that needs to happen, and forethought that needs to happen, because in a small community, none of that's going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
We don't have the budgets, we don't have the income coming in for that. But as we build it, and what Nikki's talking about, and the great things that are happening over here, and it gets more use and gets more interest, there's a lot more support to try and do some of those big dollar things.
That's really exciting. Well, we've talked a lot about what you guys have done so far. I think maybe we should take a little walk and check out the trails a little bit, and get a little taste for everything that there is for people to explore.
Yep.
All right, let's do that.
All right.
So we've climbed up the initial trail when you come in, and we're at a kind of a literal fork in the road here a little bit. Let's talk about the signage that you guys have up right now. You've got a number of trails already developed. You've named some of them a little bit. I see we've got the long loop. If we head that way, are they both? One's a long loop, one's a not so long loop, one's out back. All right.
Yep.
Yeah. So, okay, maybe it's obvious. How did you name these trails?
Just completely random.
Yeah.
We just needed to get some sort of signage up, like when we first opened up the trails to the public, and just wanted people to know that if you go that way, it's an out and back trail. You go and then you'll come back.
Oh, and come back.
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
Ampersand is gone on that.
So nothing to do with Australia. Good to know.
No,
all right, not the Outback Trail.
And then if you go this way, you can either take a long loop or there's a shortcut. So I'm like, well, that's not so long. So that's the not so long loop.
Oh, there you go.
Probably not going to stay those names.
Yeah.
As you can see, our tag board and construction paper signs are meant to be temporary. So that's something that we're working on.
Yep. And I imagine you're looking down the road to have wood or metal signs, that sort of thing. And who knows, maybe you can figure out some fun names for the loops. You can name them after some of the big volunteers, or maybe some historical Strum figures or something like that. So very good. And I think, and we'll probably share it on the, well, of course we'll share it on the Trempealeau County Tourism page, but probably in this episode as well. There's a really nice map online too that I think the Land Records Department made. I've got a copy of it here, but it shows really nicely the different loops and that sort of thing. So, okay, you take the out and back. How long are we talking with that one probably?
Maybe half a mile.
Half a mile.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the long loop and the not so long loop. So what are we thinking roughly?
It's about 1.5 miles probably.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And then if you take the shortcut, it'll cut maybe 1/4 to 1/2 mile off of the the long loop. So
you really have a lot of options. Yeah, very nice. Cool. Well, let's keep hiking a little bit more and see a few more of the sites here. So we've made it to the top of one of the trails here, and this really nice kind of open spot. And Josh, you were saying when you were a kid, from this spot you could it was all open and you could see to Strum.
Yeah, so you can see how much everything's grown up. I mean, so this used to be probably one of the tops of like where the skiers got off the rope tow, and so it's kind of a man-made flat spot. So you used to be able to come up here and everything. You can see the village, you can see kind of the valley, very open, and obviously everything's grown up a lot in the last 30-35 years, but it's become kind of a nice little private spot for, potentially maybe a rustic camping spot, or just a spot to come and sit and meditate or do homework or relax.
Because that is one of the possible uses in the future, is to have some rustic camping. We've got Crystal Lake Campground, just down the road a little bit, but some people are looking for even a more rustic experience where you're right in the woods and that sort of thing. And Nikki, you were saying you've been getting a little more into backpack camping, and maybe that'd be the sort of activity that down the road could be back here.
Right. Yep. And we've got trails for people to walk on, and there's you're not too far from where you'd park, so if somebody's like just learning how to backpack camp, come and test out your stuff. But yeah, it's nothing official yet, but it's an opportunity anyway.
Well, and just what you said too, if you want to try something like that, you are still so close to the highway, you're close to civilization, if you will, right? So yeah, get your comfort, learn your gear, that sort of thing.
Kids that don't make it through the night.
Exactly.
Get in your car and go.
Just head home. Yeah, very cool. And kind of talking about that, so what are the general hours of use up here right now? I mean, are there any real limitations right now to, as long as you're coming up here for
it's wide open, it's really at your risk, hiking and walking and anything else. So it really is open. So if you want to throw a lamp on your head and be out here at 10 o'clock at night and walk around with the fireflies and the bird-sized mosquitoes, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, I'd say.
But yeah, no, it is. And Nikki touched on it when we were walking around. The Rod Gun Club had a big night snowshoe hike. Now, snow was kind of melted, but everybody put lamps on. They were out here at 8, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, walking the trails, walking around. They had a nice little get-together down at the shack, and it ended up being a real nice event. So there's certainly a lot of opportunities for any kind of hours. But right now, to the public, it's at your own risk, whatever you want to do.
That's really cool. And I imagine in the future too, like, school groups, 4-H groups, FFA groups, I mean, what a great way to teach and to explore, to have a spot like this. And boy, hopefully that really develops too, to see young folks really starting to utilize it.
And it's your point on that. I mean, Trempealeau County's got a lot of great resources down in the southern part of the county. You look at like Pearl Park and you touched on Petrick Park. There's nice educational opportunities for youth. There's been some discussions about trying to plant some native prairie grass, doing some things with bird houses, doing some things with bees, trying to be more proactive and have a resource where if the kids wanted to take a field trip out here, get some nice signage to explain what they're looking at, what are they dealing with. We touched on, we have a lot of buckthorn. Maybe at some point we have a program to try and remove that buckthorn and educate people on what buckthorn is and why it's a nuisance in the woods.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, not to put you guys on the spot at all, but Trempealeau County, because we are such a long county, it's about 50 miles from north to south. The geography really does change. You're getting a touch out of the driftless as you come a bit north. I mean, what do we think this would have looked like 150 years ago, 200 years ago, before European settlement, when it was American Indians on this land, that sort of thing? Would it have been pretty open? Was there oak savanna up here? I mean, it's okay if you don't know, but it's just fascinating to think about what this would have been like.
And there's a reason why the Buffalo River is the Buffalo River. I mean, you know, those are educational, historic things that can be taught and educated with science.
Yeah.
You know, it is really, there's a lot of opportunity for that. There's a good opportunity to talk about the history of Strum, to talk about the ski hills and motocross and things that came before, maybe even who the homestead was owned by. You know, to your point, yeah, it's interesting. We've had a lot of looks in the last year at old photos and aerials and things. You know, even 50 years ago, there wasn't any trees here. You know, 60 years ago, there wasn't any trees here. So it really has become something different than what it was, and there's a lot of good educational opportunities for that.
That's really exciting. Well, let's educate ourselves a little more and hike some more of the trails here.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we took a little pit stop on one of the trails here to check out this awesome tree that I think Rick's getting some shots of right now. How cool. Probably, what, gotta be 150 years old or something like that.
Yeah, it's a really old oak, kind of right in the middle of the property. You know, it gets used as a landmark really when people talk about going down the top hill.
Yeah. And you got to think when this was all open back in the ski jump days and even the early homestead days, this was probably a landmark, just looking at its size and its height and you know how slow those things grow.
Yep.
Pretty cool. Just one of the neat things, sights and things you'll see here on the trails. Cool. Well, let's keep hiking. So we walked a little more, and we're in a bit of an opening right now. And as you're walking this trail, you may notice, or you were talking about it's open to the side. And there's an organic farmer that lives there.
Right. Yep. So in the evenings, a lot of times you'll see a bunch of beef cattle up here along the fence line. So it's just kind of a nice reminder, you know, that there's still the dairy state, you know, you're still in that area.
Very nice.
Because on this side, you'll see a lot of birds and deer and, I don't know, I think we have a bobcat or two around. But yeah, so it's just nice to get that up close and personal to the cattle.
And it lets some sun in too and all that. And then we also came across, now you were saying some folks have constructed and donated some benches here for the trails as well to kind of give you, you know, if you need a place to stop and rest your legs a little bit. Tell us a little bit about these benches. I know they're dedicated to folks and...
Right. So one of our Rod and Gun members and one of the members, or community members here in Strum, made and donated these benches in honor of his dad, Junior Scout, who was one of the founding members of the Rod and Gun Club and a huge part of this community. So we've got 3 of those benches, and then we have a couple more in the works of, I don't remember what high school class it was, but they had a classmate that had died early on in life, so they are going to also donate some benches. So that's something that we're working on as well. You know, people can donate and then they'll get a little plaque and everything.
That is
and we'll
so
put
cool.
them along the road.
Yeah. And then, you know, if folks are looking to get involved, because as you've said this whole time, this is a volunteer driven effort. You know, how can someone get involved? You know, whether they want to give something monetarily, or they want to donate some time or material, or maybe they've got some machinery that at some point you guys may need to finish a project and they want to donate that labor. I guess how do they get involved? Who do they contact? Kind of what's the best way to do that and to just learn more about the trails in general?
So they can contact the Village of Strum. If they're not from the area, they can contact the Village of Strum or reach the Strum Rod and Gun Facebook page. Because this isn't Strum Rod and Gun property, it's owned by the village, but we're kind of caretakers of it at the Rod and Gun. So, you know, they can contact us through the Facebook page or through the Village of Strum.
Great.
And the Rod and Gun Club's a great way to get involved too.
Yep.
They have meetings once a month over here on Wednesdays. They're always looking for membership. they're really becoming stewards of the community. They're doing a lot of stuff in the community. They had a kids fishing contest this spring, really brought out a lot of young kids and gave them an opportunity to really do something in early May. They've been kind of stewards here of the land, really taking care and pushing, and they do a lot of other stuff. There's been discussions of educating with birdhouses and different things and being more involved in that educational side. So to Nikki's point, the Village of Strum is a great place, and they can point you in the right spot, or get on Facebook and really take a look at the Strum Rod Gun Club, and they're very responsive with messaging. They do a great job as far as getting back and forth and having those conversations. So,
well, I think that's a good point that you brought up. Rod and gun clubs, some people may not really be familiar with the work they do, or they might have a certain perception of who's in a rod and gun club and the work that they're doing. But as you said, it is really diverse, the kind of work they're doing, very focused on land stewardship. You don't necessarily have to be a traditional hunter, right, to get involved in your rod and gun club, because there's all sorts of different opportunities that are focused on land ethic and conservation and making lands available to the community.
Yeah. We talk about trails out here. They're working on trying to make the Buffalo River a more navigable waterway from the nearest road, Peterson Road, down to Strum. So somebody could dump canoes in at Peterson Road or kayaks, and they could get from there down to town. They're really working, that was something that they just did one of these weekends ago, where they were working with the DNR and clearing trees and making it a navigable passage down. They've been working on that the last 2 years. And it's really a beautiful part of the river, and it's something that when we talked earlier about tying this land in, if you start building trails and canoe portages and things out, it all kind of becomes one with the community.
That's really awesome. And we should mention too, as we're going to keep going down the trail here, things change a little bit. We start getting a lot more pine trees, which just speaks to the diversity of the trail and how you're going to see all sorts of different things as you travel through it. So yeah, well, let's keep checking her out.
Cool.
So we've been walking a bunch, and now I think we're going to be going down the not so long trail. Right. So it's not so long, and it should take us back down to kind of where it clears out into the open area.
Yep.
Very nice. And it looks steep, but it's pretty manageable from what you've said. Actually, if you're this way, probably is a little less steep, but it's a little longer. This is a little shorter, a little more steep.
Yeah. For somebody, I think that has some issues climbing, you can take the long route. Even though it's the long route, it's a little bit more gradual on the backside. This would be a shortcut, but it's a little bit steeper, a little bit more rougher, still being etched out.
Very cool. And we talked about this while we were walking. You guys aren't professional trail makers, but there's been a big learning curve, a lot of hit or miss. But it's incredible what a lot of people, or you folks, not being professionals, have been able to do here, because the trails we've been walking, they're wonderful. They're really incredible. So I get a testament to you guys and all the volunteers you have. So, well, should we hit the not so long trail and head down the hill?
Yep.
All right. So we're back on the flat area, kind of approaching kind of where we started a bit. But this is a great area to talk a little bit about some of the work you've had to do to cut into the ground, to make the trails. I think you were saying this is called, this is the bench cutting that you did. Nikki, do you want to talk a little bit about that, how you did it and what you're hoping to accomplish with it here?
All right, so bench cutting is essentially taking a hill that's on an incline like this and kind of leveling it out. So you take some dirt from the high end and you transfer it over to the low end, and it flattens out the area, makes it flat like a bench. Anyway, started doing it by hand, just shovel and sweat. But we had a local gentleman that came in with his tractor and he tilled up the whole trail on this bottom part, and then came in after he tilled it and used a blade and leveled it and scraped it for us. So he took a lot of the hard manual labor out of it.
That's really
But it
great.
made it much more walkable, because otherwise it's hard on your ankles, and like in the winter you slip and slide, so it just makes it a lot more user-friendly.
Well, and it really turned out lovely. Like you said, it's very smooth, and you're not gonna roll your ankle or anything on this here. So that's really great.
Yeah, you can see on the side there, you cut down like 6 to 10 inches, and then you level it out. So you don't think it's going to cause that much trouble when you initially find the trail, but that's quite an incline.
Yeah. And so this will hold up. Won't erode down. It
Right.
should keep its shape, if you will.
It should keep its shape. We are letting grass grow. We're actually going to probably rough this up and put regular grass down maybe this fall. But it should help with the erosion that way as well.
Very cool. And let's talk a little bit about, so now, as you can see a little farther out, of course, you've got some soybeans and then some wetland. But Josh, you were saying it doesn't really get too wet out there. It just, there's a lot of opportunities possibly in the future for more activities, maybe prairie restoration, maybe, well, who knows, really the sky's the limit on what you could do out there as well.
Yeah, so you talked a little bit about educational opportunities, especially with the youth and the kids, right? And getting the school involved and trying to be more educational. And you're right, so right now we've got soybeans, we've got a local farmer that rents a portion of the property. We out a little bit further, you've got some natural wetland area. It's not overly wet, but it gives you some different areas to talk about, and over time maybe part of this soybean field reverts back to natural grass and prairie grass and different things. There's a lot of interest in bees and beekeeping up here right now, so maybe some of it gets turned back over into wildflowers, and you do some different things where you allow some people to actually have hives on site. And those become educational opportunities for kids from the school. So if you talk about field trips, you have a plaque here talking about the history of the property, maybe talking about a wild grass program that you're trying to turn this back into. You can certainly talk about, there's a little pothole swamp out here that may or may not have some water. On a general day, you've got a couple of
Sandhill cranes.
There you go. Okay.
And they're certainly vocal in the morning. So
Yep.
You've got a lot of different things going on, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity between here and what's here today and what might look like 5 years from now, and how to integrate that into the youth programs in the area.
Well, and this is a great spot too. We talked about how the trail system here works so well with some of the outdoor rec opportunities. You can literally see a guy on his golf cart there, right? And we're right next to the golf course, right off Highway 10. So there's so much accessibility. Yeah, really, I said earlier, it just folds so well into everything that's going on up this way. So very cool. Well, let's keep walking, and I think we'll probably end up where we started out.
Yep.
Well, we've gotten to the end of the trail here. Now, of course, we didn't hit all the different trails. There's different ways we could have gone and this and that. But boy, I've said it a few times today, this is so impressive, and what a hidden gem here in Trempealeau County. I don't think people realize what an asset they've got here. And I mean, a piece of that is it's just so new. I just really want to thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to come up here. I guess anything you want to leave folks with today as we head out, anything they should know? You know, we talked a little bit about how to get involved. Yeah.
No, I think the big thing on my end is just use it. It's, you know, as you see this, if you've seen the pictures, if you talk to people, it's a great resource. It is new, you know, it's something that's still in development. You'll hit parts of the trail that are flat and smooth and really nice, and other parts are a little rocky and bumpy, but it's getting worked out. But I think it's a great resource, and it's great for you guys to come down and do this video with Trempealeau County as well.
Yeah. And you know, if you're looking for a place that's not crowded and you get to see some pretty views and see a bunch of nature, it's a perfect spot for you.
Awesome. Well, yeah, like I say, we're here at the Strum Community Trails. It's been an awesome day to be out hiking right off Highway 10, just east of Strum. People need to get out here. Come out here and use this. And you know, it's the Strum Community Trails, and I think that's so important. This really has been a community endeavor, and it's amazing how the community has come together already to make so much happen. So thanks again, guys. We so appreciate it. We appreciate all you out there watching. This is Discover Trempealeau County, and we'll see you on our next adventure.